What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm your host, David Haas, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Emmanuela Pintus, who is a local yoga instructor. She's also was a registered massage therapist for 15 years. She went to India to do her yoga training. She's kind of had a really unique take on overall fitness because she was into bodybuilding, still is into bodybuilding, but also has this whole yoga flexibility element to what she does, which I find super attractive to me because I love fitness as well. I want to have muscles, but I also want to be flexible. So I'm kind of been trapped in between those two worlds of having muscles and being flexible, but I don't think that has to happen. And I think that's what Emmanuela is going to highlight here for us. So thanks for coming on the podcast. I think you're going to deliver a ton of value today.
I am so appreciative to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad to have you. So let's just start with the fitness, because I mean, I remember seeing you at the gym. We were talked about at Central Fitness there forever with like Lou Joseph and those guys. And so I remember seeing you there all the time. Whenever I was there, you were always there. So you were big into bodybuilding.
Yeah, so I started bodybuilding I started working out at 17. My first competition was at 23 years old. And then I stayed with the bodybuilding for a couple years. Okay. But I didn't want to get big. I wanted to get big. I just didn't want to take stuff to get big. I didn't want to go through all that. So I switched to figure. And it was a new sport at that point. And figure was just like smaller, but you're like, more feminine, high heels and makeup and stuff like that. So that's what I've continued doing. And it's been like 20 years now. Oh, wow. Which is crazy.
Yeah, that is wild. Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to ask you about that is just coming up is, when you're doing these competitions, you're kind of putting your body through like some extremes, right? Yeah. You're like loading up, then starving yourself. Was there any like realizations that you had during those times? Because let me give you some better context here. I went through this moment in my life where I was like, I want to get ripped. I've been exercising my whole life, but I've never been overly serious. Like during COVID here, I've been. I run 2 or 3 times a week, and maybe I'm doing some push-ups and pull-ups, but I'm not like fully, because I don't have the gym, so I'm not fully into it. So that's kind of like my background. Yeah. But one day I was into it. I was really I was doing a lot of CrossFit back then, and I was like, I want to get ripped. So I went on this journey to get to like 10% body fat and just have abs and do the whole thing. And I did it. I got there, but when I hit the goal, the first mistake I made, I had no plan for success. So I hit my goal, and I was like, oh, here's my goal. And I immediately started falling back. Like literally from the day I hit 175 was my weight, I started gaining the weight back. And then the other thing that happened that really messed me up is that by starving myself and not doing it, I think what I would say properly, it completely fucked up my metabolism I went from like the kind of guy that liked sweets to the kind of like maybe I'd have like 1 chocolate bar a day or 1 dessert a day to like, I need a whole bag of gummies. I need a whole it messed me up. And now, why did that happen? Maybe you can shed some light on it, or have you experienced similar problems?
Now, because I've done probably at least 20, maybe 25, maybe 30 competitions in my life. Mm-hmm. So now I know what to do afterwards. But the first few years, the day of the show, like after the show, you're eating everything. Like we had a cheesecake with peanut butter on top with like chips on top. Like we were just gorging. And then that went on for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then you're rebounding terribly. Your body is like all swollen. And I know one guy who had a heart attack a couple days the day after, because he was so dehydrated and then drank a bunch of water and ate a bunch of stuff. And then he just like had a heart attack. Yeah. So like it's definitely dangerous if you don't do it properly. But mentally, I know a lot of girls who have developed eating disorders from it.
Yeah, it'll mess you up, right? Yeah,
and then your metabolism's screwed up, like you said.
Yeah. Now, so I read about this one girl that she did she did the same thing to me, messed herself up, and she went and like just kept on eating and did this purposely though to reset her metabolism or something. Okay. And she like put like 30 pounds on, but then that craving of like needing to eat more, like that's what I felt happened to me. It's like I feel like I'm never satisfied anymore. It's like, that's what happened to me. So I think if you're not doing it right, but you're still in great shape, and do you feel like you struggle with like feeling full anymore, or what did you do differently, I guess, because you obviously have success with it?
Well, I try to, like, I'm not the best at eating. Like, I do intermittent fasting right now, but I don't suggest that for everyone, especially for females. It can cause a lot of hormonal issues if you do it for too long.
Okay.
But I allow myself to have it.
Okay.
You know, and that's the problem with the dieting is like, you can't have that. And that feeling of it being not available to you makes you want it more, like anything.
Right.
So now in the last few competitions, I have allowed myself a little bit more, not cheat days, but giving myself a little bit more so that I'm not in my mind wanting it so badly.
Yeah.
And then if that means that you have to do an extra half hour of cardio or whatever, but it's worth your sanity.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you do these competitions, and somewhere along the lines you start making the transition, or you were doing it already, to yoga and flexibility. And what we were just talking about before we got on here was about like overall health. You know, like you can't just bench press 300 pounds but not be able to touch your toes, or not be able to reach behind your back, right? So how did you start getting interested in the overall mobility and overall fitness?
I actually always stretched when I worked out before I did yoga. When I started doing yoga, I was at a community center. So it was like once a week, and then I went into competitions. So I wasn't really into the yoga and I wasn't really into the bodybuilding, but they kind of went in together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So now that I'm older and I see a lot of my friends from Central Fitness and like the guys from 20 years ago, and everyone's like, what do I do? Because my back is killing me, my shoulder is killing me, my knees are killing me. And so that's why I've decided to kind of promote the yoga for bodybuilders thing, because I see there's such a need for it.
Yeah, 100%. Because and then the two actually go so well together, because you're contracting the muscles, and then you need to stretch them as well, right? It's like
just like we need sleep.
Yeah, it seems so common sense when you think about it, but there's just, I know a lot of people that aren't putting the two and two together. And I think you said it best, like before we got on the podcast here, was like, fitness has to be like overall. It can't just be like you look good. You have to be able to reach above your head and this kind of thing,
exactly.
right? Yeah, for sure. So you went to India to study yoga. So like, why don't you just talk about that experience? How long was that? I know like some of the trainings are wild, like 30 days. I watched that documentary about that one yoga guy.
The Bikram one?
Yeah. Bikram, yeah. And I mean, obviously there was a bunch of other stuff going on, but the intensity of the practice, like 6 hours, 8 hours a day, I was like, holy cow, like this is in like 100-degree weather.
Yeah, his was a little bit different than mine.
Okay.
But mine was a month. For the first one, and then the second one was a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
So I stay at the ashram with the students. We're all like usually about 20 to 30 people. We share a room. So I had 2 roommates, and we eat together. We do yoga together, like lights out at 9 o'clock. You don't talk until 9 a.m. the next morning. So like we do a 6 a.m. meditation, then we do an hour and a half yoga practice, then we have breakfast, then we're allowed to talk.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's really cool. Yeah. Because it really just changes your whole, like, because you're so internal at that point. Yeah. You have no distractions. And that the first year there was no Wi-Fi, because this was like, 15 years ago.
Right.
So that was great. But then I just went a couple years ago, and it takes you out of it when you've got your phone right there and you can like click 100%. On and
Yeah, completely different experience.
Totally. Yeah. So now my teacher is in he's building another yoga school like way up in the mountains, like no Wi-Fi, nice. And then that way. So I intend to go once that is built and do some more training.
How did that, like, if it did, I don't know. I mean, we didn't really prep too much for this, but how did like being disconnected from your phone for the first time, like how long ago was that you did that? The first one, how many years
15 years ago.
So we weren't so much on our phones that much, but it probably still did change your perception of like distraction and these types of things, is my guess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, one of the things I say a lot is that we live in the age of dramatic distraction, and so like what are some things that maybe you do to stay focused on what it is that you want to do, or do you still have trouble with focus?
I have trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, and he said he's given himself a 15-minute time limit on Facebook now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because like, and then the algorithms with Facebook, right? Like they kind of tell you what they want you to focus on. And so I need to take a step back. So I'm going to do that 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the advice I'll offer here for you is that what I've learned is that it takes us, and you've experienced this, I know you have, but I don't think maybe have made the connection to, like, when you get in the zone, like you probably experienced this with working out or being on stage, like you're in the zone, like you're thinking about nothing else besides whatever it is, your next pose or whatever. You're not even thinking about your next pose. You're so in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. It all flows. It's like in the state of flow. It's like basketball players that get hot. Like that's the state of flow. And I just watched that Michael Jordan documentary, and he said that one of the guys said, I think what made him so great, he was just so present on the court, right? You know, in that present moment. So I know that you've probably experienced that, and I think everyone has experienced that state of flow. But what happens nowadays when we have our phones is that phone dings, and we might be in the state of flow and it pulls us out.
Yeah.
And it takes about 20 minutes to get into the state of flow. So every time you start experiencing it, the phone dings, you know, so then we never end up getting to that state, and we never end up actually getting what we want to get done. So what I've done recently has been just a complete game changer. Well, one is I stopped eating all sugar, which completely changed my mental clarity. Has been insane. I can't believe that was like the one piece of the puzzle that I was
How
really
much were
missing.
You having?
I was like an addict. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, like I don't know how many grams, but it was a lot.
Like,
yeah,
you would have like chocolate bars,
cake, pop, whatever. I mean, I ate it all.
Wow.
Yeah, like there would be days where I didn't eat regular food and I just ate sugar.
Yeah.
Like I would eat like right now today, because I'm kind of intermittent fasting today. So my mind is going like, I'm just gonna go get a No Henry bar.
Really?
Like that's what I would do.
Then
yeah, like
not
then,
now.
you know, even now I still
Even
feel
now.
even now I still feel the cravings a little
Have
bit.
you done a Candida cleanse?
That's essentially what I'm doing, right?
Okay.
But
Are you taking?
I cut all sugar. I'm taking garlic pills, taking oil of oregano.
Okay, so
just to get rid of the yeast in my body. And that's, if people don't know what Candida is, it's like a yeast buildup, right? So
an overgrowth of the bacteria.
Yeah, right. So and that feeds off of sugar.
Yes,
right,
and it makes you want the sugar.
100%.
That's what's driving the craving. Is that imbalance in your gut?
So now that I've cut it, my cravings have gone from like 100 to like, let's say, 5.
Okay,
you know,
great.
so it's been amazing. But the big thing that I got out of it was the mental clarity, right? And I've always known about the dramatic distraction and focusing and doing all those things, but now that I have the mental clarity, it's like I used to not be able to sit in front of my computer for like 20 minutes. Now I can sit in front of my computer for 10 hours, right?
Excellent. Which
Which is nuts. But the one thing that that I've done always is that I set like 90-minute windows where I shut my phone off. I still haven't set my computer up properly to shut the like notifications on my computer off. But my phone is off and then silent. And I'll even like message my wife and be like you can't talk to me for the next hour and a half because I'm going to be in the zone. It's like I make the joke, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's probably about maybe like 1% of the population that's actually doing that, right?
We need to. So I just started a program called Dominate Your Procrastination.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So Dimitris Jakonos, he created it. So it teaches you all of these tools that you can do. So there's something called a K-safe.
Okay.
Where you lock it. You put your phone in there and it doesn't come. You can't unlock it until like the timer.
I love that.
Yeah. And there's like all these different things, and they call them forced functions. So
okay.
that way, like these things are there so that like this a timer on your phone that you can't go on Facebook for more than 15 minutes or whatever. There are these apps.
Yeah.
I'm just learning about them now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But we all need it.
Yeah.
And I think that like I'm really big with yoga retreats. I think that they're so beneficial for people, like, or not even a yoga retreat, but just a retreat.
Any retreat, yeah.
And I feel like so that's my passion. That's what I want to start doing once we start being able to travel. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is going to be no phones.
Yeah.
Like the last one I went on in Peru, we were told we were going to have Wi-Fi, and when we got there, we didn't. I was so mad.
Right.
Like for the whole 3 weeks,
right.
Like I couldn't let it go. And like, what am I missing? Like it's weird. You get into this like attachment 100%. To something that's unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think the attachment, I think you hit the nail on the head, is the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it's like, I mean, one of the things that I do is that like I don't watch any news, like, which is sometimes like not good because I have a business that is hinging on whether I can open or not. So, but the one thing I realize about the news, and it's a big like FOMO thing, right? It's like you need to feel like you're up on current events, like so you have something to talk about at parties. But what I realize is like once you get connected to who you truly are, you always have something to talk about or something to listen to other people. But any major things that you need to hear about, you're going to hear about them.
Yeah.
Like,
I wasn't listening to the news, and my friend, she kept like telling me, you got to start watching the news. And I'm like, once I started watching the news, I just became more angry.
Yeah.
Like, people are fighting. I can't do anything about it. It has nothing to do with me. Why do I need to know about it?
Yeah.
So I have stopped. Actually, today, I'm like, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good tool there as just like a news fast. Like, just go on like a news fast. The people that watch the news are usually the people that are the most stressed out.
Yes.
Like, I catch myself too. It's like, if I do, like, if I am turning on the news for 30 minutes, I'm like, after that 30 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, like the world's ending. And you start to develop this like really negative worldview.
Yes.
When as well as I do, it's like, especially from going on retreats and, the world is like this amazing place, and there's a lot of amazing people in it, but you get really detached from that when you get into the day-to-day and consuming all the negative, like it happens. But so you've been on these, I want to talk a little bit more about the retreats that you've been on. So you did one in Peru, 2 in India. Any others that you've done?
Thailand.
Oh, nice.
I did a yoga training in Thailand.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the best place to visit.
Yeah. Like, I think like these things are probably not cheap either, I'm guessing.
No, but I spend all my money on traveling and
okay,
and training.
But like, if you're comfortable with it, like, what would you pay? What would you pay for your Thailand retreat roughly?
So it was a yoga teacher training.
Okay.
Those are usually about 4,000, like 35 to 4,500, and then the flights usually about 1,500.
Right.
And then that includes your accommodation usually.
Okay.
And then your food. So 45 and so maybe 7,000.
$7,000.
Yeah.
And they're usually like how long?
That was for a month.
For a month. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
So that's not
so
bad.
it's not bad.
Yeah.
But like you're just staying there. You're not like
you're not
traveling all over the place, because then that adds more cost. But even still, like when you're there and traveling, it's not too expensive.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is, you spent that $7,000 on a month retreat. Was it worth it?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Even when it's a bad experience, it's still worth it, because you learn so much. Like, I went to Bali, and that was a terrible experience.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Just because I was by myself, I got food poisoning. The cockroaches were the size of like dinky cars. they were enormous, and they were everywhere.
Yeah.
And I have a phobia of cockroaches. And
Okay.
so like I was like just waiting to go home.
Right.
But I mean, at the same time, I learned a lot about myself. So every trip you learn something that you would never would if you didn't go.
Yeah, and that's the way I like. I'm always trying to articulate to people that are potential clients. Is like, I literally have never invested in a program that I haven't gotten 10 times the value of it. And even if the program is like, I feel is subpar, I might just hear one little thing that is like a game changer for me, and I'm like,
it's worth it.
I value that one piece of advice, even though the course, let's say the course was a 3-week course. I got one takeaway from it, and it completely changed everything about my mindset, about maybe there was a spiritual growth or something. So it's like, just do it. Like, stop worrying about the money and just do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have the money. You don't want it to stress you out if you don't have the money.
True.
But the other thing is, if you went through the training and you think you've got that one thing that you really got out of it, 5 years from now, you might pull something else out that you don't even remember you knew.
Yeah.
So like, everything is for a reason, and the stuff that they teach you is for a purpose.
Definitely.
So you just got to trust.
Yeah, trust. Yeah, 100%. You just gotta have trust that you're getting the information that you're supposed to receive.
Yeah.
And I think I also love what you said there, was that you might not have it all clue in for like 5 years, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what this guy was saying 5 years ago. And that's a big part about like learning new things, is that we learn through repetition. So you might need to hear the same concept 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways before they finally make that one click.
Connection.
And you're like, oh, that's what it is, right? So that's what happened with me with quitting drinking. Was like, I was with a healer, and I said, what do you think is going on with my drinking? Am I drinking too much? She said, it's all tied to self-doubt. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I had no clue what she was talking about. But then it took like, I think about 3 or 4 years from that, where I was just kind of like building the puzzle, or I always say like building the light bright. And eventually, once that light was turned on, I could see the whole picture, and I could see how like I needed to receive that piece of information right at that time to allow me to like receive the next piece. And then I put the whole picture together, and then I was like, wow, if I would have just listened to her on day one, I would have, but it's just like,
you wouldn't have the depth.
Yeah, that's it. You got to go through it, right? Yeah. So I guess the point of this long story is that It's like, if you're thinking about going on a retreat, or you're thinking about hiring a coach, or whatever it may be, just do it. And don't stress yourself out about money. But even if you don't have the money, I would even say just do it, because we always have the money. It's never about the money for people. It's like, that's the one thing I think about when it comes to investing. Let's say yoga, like, one of the things you have coming up is you have your 4-week online training, and people are like, oh, I don't want to spend the money. But it's like, if it was life or death, you would find a way to come up with the money. And right, that's what I tell my clients. It's like, let's say I'm signing them up for a $5,000 coaching package, and they're like, oh, the money, I don't know about the money. I'm like, if I were to guarantee you that you signed up with me and it cost $5,000, you were going to make $50,000, would you be able to find the money? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay. So it's not about the money. It's about that you don't believe I can deliver for you, or you don't believe that you can deliver for yourself, or whatever it is, right? So, I guess it's almost like a leap of faith in some ways, and it's like a surrender over to, I want to say a higher power of your understanding that everything is happening in perfect synchronicity. Whether you feel like it was a right or a wrong decision, it's what needed to happen. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about like spiritual growth, spirituality. So, because some of the things that you realize, when you over your life, but also when you're on that retreat, was like the power of gratitude is one of the things that you mentioned. So why don't you just expand on how that plays a role in your life?
I think most people see that when they go on vacation, especially from Canada or the US, and they go to a third world country. You do see we have it really good here.
The greatest.
Right? Yeah. And so when you go to India, it's like even that much more of a difference. And you see just like so much like people that need help, Yes. And I don't know, like, it just makes you appreciate the clean water, the ability to be able to go to a doctor when you need to. And people even just looking at you, because like the people on the streets, like no one's even paying attention to them, and it's, so it makes you just be grateful for, just for being able to be in a community of respect, and
just like being able to see the other cultures. And one thing I think a lot of people, we get into like this blame mentality. Like I was in that blame mentality for the better part of my life, being like, oh, it's the country I live in. Like we're overtaxed. We're like a socialist society. Like there's no room to make money and all this. And you get in this mindset that you need to move or you need to escape or whatever. But after you do some traveling, you start to have some experience, you come to this one realization is that no one has it better than us. Literally nobody. Like even in Europe, like, I mean, I spent a month in Barcelona, and I was like, we couldn't drink the water. It's like we had to buy bottled water. And it's like, geez, it's like we turn on our tap and we have like clean filtered drinking water, and it's like when you start to come to that realization, and you can stop passing the blame, saying, oh, I'm in the wrong country. It's, whatever. It's the government that's holding me down. It's like, well, if you're not making it here, you're going to be probably even more hard pressed to make it in a different country.
Yeah, that's
right?
a good point.
Caribbean or wherever it may be, that you think that is your paradise. Believe me, when you go there, if you haven't solved the reason why you're blaming, you're going to blame even more when you go to Turks and Caicos or wherever you're
going. Those places are nice to go for a short time because you're staying in a resort, someone's taking care of you, they've got clean water to give you, but if you're living there, it's something totally different. So the traveling is wonderful, and it just makes you appreciate what you have. 100%.
100%. So another big thing that you've learned over time is about the importance of breath work, right? So I do a lot of meditating. Just recently, I got introduced to a local woman here. Her name is Kelly White. I don't know if you know who she is or not. Yeah. Okay. So she started introducing me to a lot of these new breath techniques, and I've been experimenting with them a little bit. And what I've found, this is my own experience, and I would love to hear what yours is, but it allows me to connect quicker to like the present moment, to connect to, creator, whatever it may be. That then in turn allows me to get the messages that I want to receive faster. So
it's amazing.
I think that there's power in that, but I know that there's a lot more that comes from the breath work. So why don't you just explain like kind of like what you've discovered?
So for sure, it helps to get you into that calm zone. It helps with the brain waves and that sort of thing. My teacher calls it, you get a Wi-Fi signal when you're able to just like clarify. Because it's true, like you said, like you start getting stuff that you wouldn't get if you were so busy. Like these things, like, great ideas come to someone who's just about to fall asleep or those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, it does help to control your anxiety reactions. So we do this type, you may have done it, where you hold the breath out.
Yep.
And then your carbon dioxide increases. And then your body it has that wanting, but you hold it, and then you can override that reaction of stress. When you're able to keep doing that and keep practicing that, so I'll do that in my classes. I'll do like a strong breath practice or breath hold or whatever. And then right away, go back to that controlled diaphragmatic breathing. So then that way, when you get stressed out, someone almost hits your car or whatever, then you're able to control it right away. You have that ability. It doesn't even you don't have to think about it.
Right.
So when you're able to control your stress, you're able to control like everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think it also just has so many health benefits too, because, we go throughout our entire day just breathing just so effortlessly and not even really. But then it's a lot of times when I'm giving people treatments or I have people just getting ready for meditation, I just say take one deep breath, fill your lungs to the fullest capacity and let it out. And the level of stress that they feel, I can sense that it has dropped just from taking one breath, right? And it's we think of we get so focused on food and water and exercise and all these things, but it's what's the one thing that you can't live without immediately? It's air. It's you can go for 21 days without food and 3 or 4 days without water, but only about a couple minutes without air, right? So,
breath is making a comeback though. Now, have you noticed
yes.
a lot more teachers are teaching it? I learned about it in my first training, and I just recently started practicing it and offering it. Yeah. Because it was uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable practice, to hold your breath and whatever. And I didn't feel I wanted to put my students through that. You know what I mean? Because I remember what I went through. And so so now I've been teaching it more, and I just tell them it's going to be uncomfortable. Don't force it. Take a break when you need to. Because that's the other thing too. If you're stressed out when you're doing it, you're defeating the purpose.
You're defeating the purpose. Yeah. Well, and what about that though? Let's talk about that, because I'm sure you've experienced this with bodybuilding over the years. It's is having the ability to push past that point where you want to quit. What do you think you tap into, or how do you do that? I know you've pushed yourself hard in the gym to a point where or maybe, I don't know, I'm sure you have. Yeah. I know you have.
Yeah. But it's never been an issue. You just.
Yeah. Some people I think have an ability to just do it more regularly. It's easy to push past that limit where they're saying, I only want to do 10 reps, but you do 12. Some people just have that, and some people need to build it up.
Have you heard of David Goggins?
Yeah. I love Goggins.
Right? Oh, so that's him, right? He thrives off of that discomfort. So what I tell my students is don't look at it as discomfort. So if we're doing a lot of there's a Kriya where you do a lot of up and down squats. And your thighs are burning. Yes. Well, you can look at it as it's uncomfortable and it's burning, or you can look at it as growth. Yes. And so I'm be grateful for that ability to find that sensation and feel that. And it's going to be over soon. Yeah. Right. And the benefit lasts. So I keep reiterating that. So maybe that's how I get through it when I'm lifting weights.
Well, I think I think you hit the nail on the head. It's you recontextualize it. Instead of this is hard, it's because this is hard, I'm getting stronger. Yes. I just made an Instagram post. When things get hard, I get stronger. Yeah, right. So I love it. Yeah, just that little subtle reframing of it. It's this is not hard. This is this is making you. Gift. Yeah, it's a gift, right? And I've learned to turn literally everything in my life into a gift. That's the way I live every day. It's life is a gift, and it's I literally receive gifts every single day from, for me it's God, but it's source power, whatever you want to call it. Whether it's good or bad. If something happens bad to me, I'm okay, what's the gift I'm going to receive from this? And then that's why I don't have a negative worldview, is because I can see the good in everything. So what's your experience because I know that you're that same type of person where, especially when you were talking about doing a bunch of squats and seeing the gift in that, you've already been able to do that. What do you think led you there?
I think it was innate. I never really had a problem.
Oh, good.
I've always trained myself. So I started working out when I was 17, and I just went to the gym and just you assume it's going to be uncomfortable. You just deal with it.
Yeah, right.
So it's never really been an issue. I've never had to have someone go, come on, go, let's do, like, I'm sure it would have helped and I probably would have gotten further.
Right.
But no, I've always just enjoyed it. I'm not a Goggins, but it's the same kind of idea.
I think Goggins is a rare breed, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But I get it though, like what he kind of like embraces the suffering a little bit. And I kind of understand that going back to like what I went through with the food, because now I will use periods of suffering, and I don't even like calling it suffering, but let's just use discomfort. It for now. Yeah. To tune into what is still holding me back from achieving what it is I want to achieve. So for example, if, when I was addicted to sugar, I would just stop eating sugar and start listening to my thoughts and start like taking that observer mode and being like, when I feel that craving, why am I craving it? Right. Like, is it because I feel good? Is it because I feel bad? Is it because I'm stressed out? Whatever it may be. And then when you start to tune into what is causing you to have this, I call them survival patterns, meaning, something bad happened in your life and you developed a survival pattern, and that survival pattern is now a block to you achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. So a good way to tune into what your survival patterns are is to stop any negative behavior that you have, right? So if you're addicted to social media, stop using social media and then start paying attention and observing what's going on. So I think that's where Goggins is like, what he's tapping into is he's like, okay, like I want to learn how to push past my resistances, know? And I mean, a great way to do it is just to start doing it. I think you've kind of always been that person where you're like, you said, I've been training myself since I was 17. You just got into action, and through the action, you learn how to become like this bodybuilder, and through the action, you learn how to become this yoga trainer. So maybe I don't know, maybe it's just like it was just in you.
I think so. I mean, I had a lot of help along the way.
Of course.
So I would always ask friends or like read, magazines at the time because we didn't have the internet. But I think that you get teachers from all over, but it's all down to you, and how you are able to do it.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, because so many of us think that we need to add something or we need this out there, but it's like, you're right. It all comes back to us. I mean, that's the saying on my website. It's never about what's going on out there. It's always about what's going on in here. So I think you probably had an ability to look within early and say, okay, like what is it? How is this all fall onto me? It's only me and me alone that are going to create these results. So that brings me to like childhood and that kind of thing. It was like, because I'm interested, for me, I know that I developed a ton of survival patterns that held me back in my life. And I had to learn how to go back and understand what those survival patterns were first and foremost, and then understand what they were
protecting you from.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So then once I went and dealt with what I was being protected from, I no longer needed a survival pattern. Right. But for you, it feels like I don't know, maybe your survival pattern was positive. Maybe it was like, I'm going to work out and get strong. I don't know. Like, what do you think it is? I mean, I'm really putting you on the spot here because I never prepped you for this. But.
I really just like the look of it. Like I saw the women in magazines with like that had muscle, and I just really, really appreciated it. I really wanted it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went to the gym. I think I was actually 16. I was in grade 12. And I never thought that I could achieve that though. Like I just really like wanted to be in that experience and get towards it. And then maybe a year in, this girl at the gym was like, you could totally do it. And I'm like, no, I don't think I can do it. And so just by her saying you could do it, I was like, okay, maybe I can. And so then I just put more thought into doing a competition. Yeah. And then like my first competition was like when I was 23. So yeah. It did help to have that little push.
Yeah, right.
She wouldn't have said that, I don't know if I would have done it. Actually, yeah. Yeah. But I was, my mom had an accident when I was like maybe 15.
Okay.
So I was kind of like just me and my brother, like living there. Like we were young, so I didn't really have like overly like someone looking down and telling me what to do and like. You got to do this and you got to do this in school. If I didn't go to school, it didn't matter, but I did go to school.
Yes.
But staying out late didn't matter. Like I just, so maybe that's why I'm just more like, I just got to do it myself.
Yeah. Right. I think that could be it. Yeah. And so I think for you, it's like the survival pattern that you created was like, hey, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So it's all on me. I don't have, the support there. I'm not saying support, but like, it lands on you.
Yeah.
And I think that understanding is probably what allowed you to have the success that you've had.
Yeah. And maybe that's why I never wanted a coach.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's to say that doesn't mean that you can look outside for coaching, because like you said, that one person gave you that one little push. And,
seriously.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah. Kelly Starrett says only an idiot wouldn't have a coach.
Yeah. Right.
But I mean, at the time though, let's be honest, like how many coaches were there? They just started coming out within the last like 7 years, and now there's like teams and stuff like that. But I just never jumped on. I'm like, I've been doing it myself this long. Now I'm going to jump on. Mm-hmm. And then I haven't turned pro, so like I'm like, I really want to, and then if I get a coach and then I turn pro, and then it's going to be like, oh, because the coach did it, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, I'll just ride it out.
I think that's the biggest resistance to coaching, and this is for coaching with me or coaching with you in like taking a yoga training, is that people believe that they want to believe they can do it on their own, right? And you're kind of a prime example of that you can do it on your own. 100% you can.
That's
like
exactly.
And it literally what I do in coaching for people is I just show them how they can do it on their own.
Yeah.
Like I get rid of those blocks and those survival patterns, and then once those are gone, they excel, right? So the thing about a coach or a mentor or having a good instructor is get you there quicker.
Yep. Totally.
That's why I tell every single one of my clients is like, everything that you need is already inside of you. It's just like, we just got to understand what's blocking what's inside. Like I have this thing, it's like, we're all great. It's just, we have blocks to that greatness coming forward. So like, I just help you remove those blocks so that you can move forward. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you got to teach them how to fish and not just give them the fish. Like I had, went with my friend to see her coach, and he's telling her what to do, and she's doing it. And then I'm like, but why? Mm-hmm. Like no one ever, she doesn't ask why. I just like, because then now when you want to do it yourself, if you ever want to do it yourself, you don't know what his reasoning was behind what you were doing.
Yeah.
So that's always been my thing. Like there's a lot of people who don't want to know. Like she even said, I don't care. She's like, just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it.
Ignorance is bliss. Yeah.
Right. And there's those kinds of people too. So like, I just want to show you, like, I'm going to teach you how to do the crescent warrior or the pigeon or whatever. And then you can go off and do it on your own, not needing me every time.
Yeah. What do you think was the shift that happened for you in yoga? Because I've kind of experienced a little bit of it, but it hasn't been like, I haven't like fully, I feel that I want to be like, this is all I want to do exercise wise, but I know that even that thinking is probably not right. But like, there was moments where I was like, I was dabbling in yoga, but then something just shifted one day where I'm like, this is what I want to be doing. So how did that happen for you?
Well, interestingly, when I switched from bodybuilding to figure, I needed to get smaller. So I stopped working out and just did yoga like 6 days a week. And then that really just like ingrained it into me. And I was like, okay, this...
Again, just took action.
Yeah.
And then it happens, right?
Yeah. It just like melded into the way it is now.
Let me give you this example. I mean, I know it works for women because I go to yoga and I see the women in yoga. I'm like, these freaking chicks are ripped. Like, so I know, and they're there every time I'm there. So I know that that's pretty much probably the only practice that they have is yoga. For a man, is like, could I still build muscle in yoga? Like with the bodybuilding background, you could definitely answer this.
Well, funny you should ask.
Okay.
But now because of COVID, I realize, and I've said this, you can't. You need both.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get muscle.
Yeah.
If you don't care about muscle, yoga is fine. Yoga is perfect.
You can still have muscle on you from yoga, but you're not going to build muscle, let's say.
No, it's going to be a dense muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But it's not going to be big. So you're lacking the pulling.
Okay.
Like you can maybe do like a handstand to get some like shoulder press, but there's not a lot of like back or bicep.
Okay.
Or like shoulder, like overhead shoulder, like maybe downward dog, but that's still like kind of like.
Right.
So I noticed that with me doing a lot of yoga, my rear delts aren't as developed as they should be because I just didn't I didn't use that as much. So now in my training, I do more back stuff, but I mean, I haven't done any back stuff in like 4 months because the gym's been closed.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think what I pull away from this is like, you just got to develop a plan that's just like right for you and what you want to do, right? Like I think that's what you did is like you're into bodybuilding and fitness and you're like, oh, I got to get leaner for these competitions. So you started adding yoga. And I think that's, for me, when I look at my overall fitness, it's like, I want to have muscle. I want to have I don't want to be jacked huge, but I want to look good. And then, but I also want that flexibility and that functionality
you need it
for the rest of my life. Because I mean, the biggest thing someone said this to me once is that the big reason that we start getting stiff and start feeling is because we stop doing stuff. Oh, I'm getting older, like that mindset. I'm getting older, I can't play hockey anymore. Oh, I'm getting older, I can't bend down. And then all of a sudden you stop doing stuff, and then guess what? Your body seizes up, right? So it's like the mobility. I've really been big on like the stretching. Stretching is something I never did ever. And then I started seeing a fascial stress therapist, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a mess. I can't even open my hips, kind of thing, right? So. I guess I think the big takeaway from this is you have to develop a plan for yourself. Like it might be lifting weight, it might be more cardio, it might be, but there's got to be the element, I think, of weight resistance, some sort of resistance, and you get that from yoga too. Like you're right, you just hold a squat or whatever, you're going to get it,
or push-ups, the lunges.
So you're going to, depending on what level of weight resistance you want. Then you have to have the mobility and the flexibility, right? And then the other element I would say is still probably cardiovascular, aerobic,
exactly,
the breath, right? So however you want to, if you want to be, bigger muscles, lift more weights. Only a couple days of yoga and stretching or whatever. Right,
But you should still meditate every day.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your meditation practice look like?
So currently I'm doing Kundalini meditation.
Okay.
It's 11 minutes and it's a chanting meditation.
Okay.
And it's focused on the navel chakra for creation, manifestation.
Yeah.
So I just started doing that. It's for 40 days. I'm like maybe 10 days in.
Nice.
And my teacher's doing something on Facebook. It's free. It's the first 7 days of the month.
Okay.
Each day is a new chakra.
Okay.
And so I did that with him this morning on Zoom, on the Facebook Live or whatever. And then I continue doing that through the month.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Have you had the experience of Kundalini energy flowing?
I always thought it was like, come on, because we went, because in the yoga training in India, he would do some Kundalini classes, and like some people, have you ever heard of the way that some people? Yeah. So my first experience was this guy, it was dark in the room, but there was probably 80 people in the room. And he just started losing it, speaking tongue and holding his hand, rolling around, and it was really crazy. Yeah. And then a few more times, people would just start bawling out of the blue, and I'm just like, I don't know if that's true. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was always against it, not against it, but just I'm not believing it.
Yeah.
So my last time I was in India, I had a cold or whatever. I don't know if it was cold. I was staying in a room that was infested with mold, so it could have been a mold reaction. Yeah. But possibly. Yeah, and I had a cracked tooth, so I had an infected root. Yeah. The pain was all down my face and my neck. And then I was staying in this room that the toilet kept running. So I had no sleep, I had massive pain, and I couldn't breathe. Yeah. I was like, I need out of here. It was getting to me. Yeah. So then we go to class. It's 6 a.m. It's a Kundalini class. Oh, I was so mad. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a lot of work. The breathing is a lot of work, right? And then I couldn't breathe and whatever. So in this particular class, I accepted where I was, and we have to breathe fast. I did what I could, and not expecting anything, not expecting anything. And I had this, all I remember in my mind seeing a snake, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And then it left, because once you put attention to it, then So that I was totally freaked out. I was like, wow, like, so it's real.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, and you, with Kundalini, you, like, you know, you want to have like a guide or something, because there are times when you can have like a Kundalini experience where you're not prepared, and people will think you're going crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so,
well, I'm not like a crier, but like, this emotion like just came out of me that was like what I had seen other people go through happened to me. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm trying to like hide it, because I'm like, I'm one of those people, you know, but it's real.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and I experienced that with treatments on people. Like, you know, sometimes I'll get people on the table and the energy's flowing, and they're just finally connected to an emotion that's been buried for so long. Maybe it's the judgment over crying and not crying and letting emotions go. Yeah, and finally we get to the root of where that began and why, you know, and then that emotion is finally free to let go. And it's like, that's what happens. Like, they just break down on the table, right? Because it's the first time that they're really connecting to that emotion, because they've spent their whole entire life suppressing or repressing it, right? And then in a second it comes to the surface, and that's what you experience, like that flow of energy. And after they get off the table, one of two things happens: either they're like supercharged for the rest of the day, or they're like, they go home and they sleep for 6 hours. You know, so usually it's the sleep, because it's like the body's like just like taking a sigh and like saying, okay, I need to chill and relax and let this process kind of thing.
Try to get back to normal.
Yeah, 100%. So what do you think? I love asking these kind of questions, because like this is what people like get off on, is like, what do you think's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to fitness?
You think people love answering that question?
No, I don't think they love answering. They love hearing it.
Okay, so
because it's not an easy answer. That's what everyone wants, an easy answer, right? So like when if I put that as the title of this podcast, you know, the number one mistake people make in fitness, they're going to be like, oh, I want to listen to that, because I want to know what the one thing is I'm missing. I already know the answer, but I want you to answer it for your own like.
I don't know if I'm going to answer the right way.
Oh, there's no wrong answer here.
Okay, so the biggest mistake with fitness, intention.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, because I'll see in yoga the same people, even in the gym, the same people over and over again, years. Yes. But they don't change. Yes. So, you know, I said that to someone, and he's like, but maybe they're fine the way they are. And I'm like, you know what? That's true. And it's your intention. So like, you can be in a posture. I can just hold my arms like this, or I can hold my arms like this. Like I can be intentional in it. Like even in a squat, like I can be hanging on my joints, or I can be powerful. Yes. Even if you're not lifting a heavy weight, you can engage, and you can like get the sensation that you're looking for, and it's the intention. Yeah. So. Right. Yeah. Just expand upon that a little bit, like the intention of like what they're planning on getting from working out, or the intention like just when they come into the gym and saying like, I intend to do my best, whatever I can. Like, is that in the moment? In the moment. So like, even doing like an abdominal crunch. If you're not really intending on strengthening your abdominal wall, all you're going to do is pull your chin into your chest, right? Yeah. But the intention is to get stronger. I try to use like, think about bringing your sternum towards your pubic bone. Like I'm trying to like really get them to feel what's supposed to happen, rather than just flailing around and like, okay, I did it. Love it. That wasn't the answer that I thought I was. The answer that I feel is like, there is no one thing that you can do, you know, like it's like just like we talked about, it's like it's overall fitness. So it's like you have to develop a plan that works for you. But I think you nailed it though with that. It isn't the intention of, you know, being present while you're there. It's like I've caught myself doing that in yoga practices, and when they're like, hold the pose, you know, and some days I'm like, I get out of the pose earlier than I should have, right? And the other days I'm like, no, like I'm getting better, like I'm staying present, I'm actually connecting to what I'm feeling throughout my body, and then those are the days I'm able to stay in the pose longer or whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, I love that for sure. So first of all, I think you delivered a ton of value there. I think what you have to offer is that you were able to become like great in one thing, you know, and whether you believe that for yourself or not, but like you had real
amazing success. Like, you know, even I look at you today, I'm like, geez, this girl's in amazing shape still, right? And like, you have the body of like a lot of people would want, and you've been able to achieve that. So now you're able to start to put that over into other areas of your life, being yoga, spirituality, whatever it may be. So I think it's good for people to sit across and hear people's story that were able to become great at one thing, because then you can learn how to apply it to other areas of your life. So that's kind of what you're starting to do with yoga and teaching yoga. I've watched a few of your Facebook lives. Maybe I'm gonna come down to the river one day and do a.
You totally should.
Yeah, I will. And I'll jump in behind camera or something like that. But where can people find you? How can they sign up for classes with you? That kind of thing.
So because of the COVID, I'm doing the outdoor classes.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was working at the gym and at the yoga studio. So people would just like come to my classes there.
Yep.
So now I'm trying to do self-promotion with the Facebook and the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the YouTube. I upload whatever classes I do up to YouTube. And I just started, so I was talking to my brother yesterday about like, he's in so much pain. He's like almost 50 and he's like busy and I don't have time to do an hour of yoga. And I'm like, okay, I need to create something for like that person. Yeah. So I'm currently working on a 2-week thing where it's just going to be like 15 to 20 minutes a day. And you're just gradually building upon the next thing that you learned. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of thing that I want to focus on right now is the people who never do it. Just like, I keep saying, all you need is 10 minutes a day, preferably 20. But like you could get away with 10 minutes a day of just like a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of breath work, a little bit of mobility. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of like where my coaching is focused around, is like, stop focusing on the how. Like, you know, everyone gets obsessed. Like, I don't know how to get more flexible. It's like, yes, you do. It's like, you know how. Go to yoga. Like, YouTube how to stretch. Like, you know what you need to do. But the real question is like, why aren't you doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is it because of the story you're telling yourself that you don't have enough time? Is it because of your survival patterns? Like, that's what you want to start tuning into, is like why they're not actually doing the work. Because when I got into really good shape, I went down that road. I was like, I thought I was going to be like a personal trainer and fitness, but I realized that there's more to it. And I think yoga kind of starts to touch upon that. It's like about the mindset and the soul and these types of things, about getting really connected to who you truly are. That will start to break down those barriers, right? So that's I think where the challenge you'll have is like that guy that says he doesn't have time, is how do you break through to him to show him that it's not the case that he doesn't have time. He watches 2 hours of Netflix every night. Right. You know, so it's like, so why is he using the survival pattern of escape to not focus on his health? Maybe it's a sense of unworthiness or whatever. So I think if you can somehow tap into that and answer that question for people, then it's going to get them motivated to start coming, for sure. Yeah. So where can people find you? You're on Instagram and YouTube. Where are they searching if they're trying to find you?
So on Instagram, it's my name, Emmanuela Pintus. Yep. And then on Facebook, it's like a Facebook fan page or whatever you call it, like a business page or whatever. So Emmanuela Pintus, Chandra is my yoga name. Okay. It means moon. All right. Pintus, it's a long one. Yoga and fitness. BFF. It's like super long. Right. I know I need to condense it, but if
I was going to give you a coaching tip, it all needs to be onto one name, 100%.
So BFF is like my fitness class that that's my style. Yeah. So it's about 35 minutes, and it's like shoulders, abs, and glutes. So it's like just for mostly focused on like women shaping and stuff, you know.
And then also you're doing that Facebook live at the river.
Yes.
Once a week, is that it?
Well, this week I did it 3 times. Oh. Yeah. Wow. So once we get back to work, I'll probably just do it once a week.
I love that though. So it's like,
I love it.
And you're not charging for that.
No.
So people could come and they could put up a mat around you and they could do the class with you.
Yes. So once we got into stage 2 and other yoga studios started doing outdoor classes and charging, that's when I started accepting donations, because I don't want to be like that jerk. And it's like people are trying to make money, but then there's that jerk over there doing it for free. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm like, just to make it fair to everyone, like they're, you know, but at the same time, I don't want people to not come if they don't have money. Yeah. Especially like the way I look at it, it's 3 days a week. If you're doing like $10, that's $30 a week. That's like $120 a month. Like that's a lot of money when people aren't working right now. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, just do what you can. Yeah. And I just want you there. I just want people there.
And what time are those? Are they random? Are you posting on your social feeds?
I try to be consistent because I know that's a big thing with business.
Yes.
So I was doing them at 7. I started at 8, and then now that the days are getting shorter, they're at 7:30, and then starting tomorrow they're at 7 p.m. And then Sundays at 11 a.m.
I love it. So yeah, if you want to check out Emmanuela, just go to her social feeds and join one of her classes. I think it's an opportunity to go. If you want to give her a donation, do that. But also, if you want to get outside and stretch, the weather's been beautiful, so take advantage of that. So
don't worry about the donation if you don't have it. I just want you there.
Yeah, I love it.
Beginners too.
Yeah, that's where I would be. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for coming to the podcast, and you provided a ton of value. It was really great.
Thank you.